Here we are again.
Yay. Nice to meet you, Sandra.
Nice to meet you.
Perfect. Bet you didn't realize you were on video for a second, did you?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
It's the Zoom age. Much better,
Hey,
Lynn.
Lynn.
Okay, technology is not my strong point. All right. Hopefully everyone is, I feel like I missed everybody. I'm sorry. Did y'all see who all was on there?
Penny was on there. That's the only name I remember. Anyone else?
All right, so what I'm gonna do is,
Patty Stover as well.
all right, there they are. There's one. All right, y'all, I'm really sorry. All right, so looks like I have all right, there's Sandra. I think that was everyone, wasn't it? Okay, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so like I was saying before Darth Vader came on, that list of steps that I have sent you, those, did you take a minute and look at those when I was switching over?
Yes.
All right, so that's where the homework comes in. Like I was saying, basically the point of today's is we're going to take those two documents and they're going to be, so I'm going to edit it into I call it the S&P Saltmarsh Properties buyer questionnaire, and then the guide to selling a home. So let's look at the buyer agent referral from start to finish. So I'm gonna give you a quick overview of some of the method behind the madness of why I do what I do. On the first bullet, obviously you see it's sent to the buyer. The information comes to me. That could be through a referral. It could be through a signed call, whatever. I reach out twice. The first one is in an email. I never call buyers first. And the reason for that is I learned early on that if I called a buyer first, they typically will start to launch into what they're trying to do. And then guess what happens when that process begins that way? They're in control, I'm not. And I learned that I needed to stay in control from the very beginning. So even if I have all day available, I still email them first with all these resources. As you see on the list, I send them a buyer questionnaire. I send them a guide to buying a home. There's the two things we're gonna work on today. I send them an area map, a vendor list. I have an extensive vendor list because I've been doing it for 12 years, but at the least you could start, mine's I think like 4 pages now. I include everything from like dog boarding places, whatever I've added over the years. If you aren't there yet, then at the very least you have a lawyer and a loan officer, movement mortgage, and it would behoove you to start calling on other businesses if you wanted to build that bigger, have them for coffee, start to get to know them, and then you're building your database as you go. But nonetheless, I have a vendor list. I bundle up blank South Carolina contracts. And then I put together a locals guide. In some lull of my business, I realized that it would be nice to be able to send them something that has, here's some hot spots or highlights of places. And I did Somerville, the North Charleston, like Tanger area, Park Circle, West Ashley, James Island, Johns Island. So I did like farmers market, marinas, parks, as well as links to golf courses, all the beaches. And of course and then I said, here, like I'll have like 2 links to 2 restaurants in like Somerville proper, the Avondale area. It used to be just 2 places in Johns Island. Now there are more, but I'd put 2 to 3 links of good restaurants, places to go, as well as some of the shopping centers, because that could be easy if it's just like, hey, here's a link to a shopping center and there's food in there. They have those in Mount Pleasant as well as like the James Island, West Ashley area. So they get that locals guide. Now, obviously, if it's a cold call or it's a cold lead, you don't know if they're local or not. It doesn't hurt to send them everything. But if I get someone who was leaving one house and going to another in Charleston, then they don't get the area map because they don't need it. They're familiar with Charleston. So obviously use common sense there. Part of that email, I have a copy paste sample email that, or not sample, I have a canned email that goes with it that says, hey, thank you for your interest in using our team. Please find attached. Here's how I work. I have a consultation first, then we go look at houses second, and we have a lot of work between those two things. When's a good time for me to give you a call? So, because there are two things that happen. Either I send it, I call them and get a voicemail, and then in my voicemail, I say, hey, I've sent you items of value, or I've sent you things you need on your email, or I get them on the phone and they start to want to talk to me, but I start that conversation with, I only have a few minutes, I'm in between appointments, but I have in your email right now some items that I want you to review, and then let's set a time when I can really focus and take notes. So from the very beginning, I am in control, but part of my conversation is I already have sent you important things, so it sets me as the professional right there from the beginning. Okay. So that's why it's, to me, crucial. I don't call first, I email first. They have items of value. And then if I don't get them on the phone, I have a voicemail saying, hey, go check your email. I can't wait to meet with you. And then sometimes I get back from them an email within 24 hours with everything filled out. The questionnaire is filled out, and a time that we can talk. So I've knocked out 3 birds with that one email, and then I follow up. And if I have, like I said, if I have nothing to do, I still wait an hour or two before I call them after I've emailed them. It's just the method to my madness is I'm busy. They need to get used to I'm not immediately available, but I am going to come from value every time. So that kind of became my system. All right. Next bullet is I set the appointment. That is in person or phone. It all is dependent on where they are. So the consultation is then held, and I typically, if it's on the phone, because I have a lot of people who move here from other areas, I can't meet with them in person, right? Unless they're coming into town in 7 days, then we need to have that consultation so that we set proper expectations, because I will not drive them around for 7 days if they think that's a good idea for their time in Charleston. As far as they know, I'm booked up with a lot of clients and I have about an hour or two for them. So you have to learn over time how to control them, but also be extremely helpful. Which is why I have the buyer's guide. I've already given them something that they have places to go to eat, drink, and be merry. If in the case I'm so covered up with buyers that I can't be with them 4 and 5 days in a row. Because I've started to learn how to deal with a lot of people who were coming on vacation, wanted to go see some real estate, but they weren't buying for another year. So I had to learn how to control that, build the relationship, build the rapport, start the relationship so that I could cultivate it, but also not give up 5 days of my life without a paycheck. And if, by the way, if y'all have questions or you have input on any of this, I want you to jot them down, because we'll stop and talk about it. When I say, hey, let's talk about it. See, I like control. So I have the consultation. I'm reading it with you, so I'm kind of, can't see your faces, but I will in a minute. We make a plan of action, and then we hang up the phone. And then I send the follow-up email, my second email, which is so creatively labeled post-consultation. It's basically telling them what we just talked about, as well as recapping dates and timelines, their homework and my homework. I take a few minutes after we hang up the phone to make sure I do that, simply because I have learned, I'm telling you what I've learned through what have been, what has caused me stress in the past. And so I'll say, you have homework, you need to send me this, and I need to do this. And then 3 or 4 days later, I might get this frantic email, this frantic text, we want to see this house. I have to go back and look and see, did I send the post-consult email? I have to go track, did I send it? And if I don't have anything back from them, they didn't do their homework, I'm not going to go show them a house. That homework might be a pre-approval, right? It might be some other things that are super important to us going and looking at a house. So then I'm able to say, hey, I definitely want to go show you this house. Did you get my email? I haven't gotten anything back from you that we needed to move forward. So again, I am micromanaging these buyers, but they don't really know it, because they don't know what what the system's supposed to be, right? And very few agents, as I've taught, the reason I teach this class, because I learned no one ever does this. Most agents just let the buyers run them, and and everyone is super stressed. I learned to stop doing that because I want to hang out with Joseph or not be on the phone in the evening. I want to be on the boat on a Saturday. So I learned to micromanage them, and from it has come quite the structure that buyers are like, oh my gosh, I know who's in control. I don't have to think up everything. She's sending me a recap. She's sending me what's next, that kind of thing. Okay, so the post-consult email tells them everything that they need to be doing and I need to be doing. And if we've decided they're not buying for a year, then there's a different set of instructions. And I have that email basically has an italics, like the italics are what apply to you. Most of the time I still want to have a consultation, and I still want to set up a listing alert for them, because I've learned that if you get them receiving houses, this was before the internet was so big with house searches, but back, you know, in the day when I was young, they would get these listing alerts from me, and all of a sudden they were like, I want to buy a house sooner. I'm gonna make whatever it works happen, because I'm excited about the pictures and I'm no longer excited about my current situation. So I really wanted to always consult with them and get them on a listing alert. So you want to have that consultation regardless. You just need to now set a different set of steps, right? Hold on 2 seconds. All right, making sure you're all still there. I realize I'm talking and not looking. Okay, so the next bullet is I schedule homes. I try to get those 2 items before showing the buyer agency a pre-approval. We go look at houses, and then I have a whole nother system that kicks into place once we ratify once we get a contract under, once we get a house under contract, and that's all identified in the contract to close system of emails, bullets that I have, and the order of emails. We're not going to focus on that today, because I want to focus on you actually getting your buyer, what happens between first consultation to getting them in your car. But the good news is my system is so fine-tuned now that the minute I go under contract, all I do is copy and paste emails to my clients and all the parties who are involved from that point forward. I don't create anything new, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so everyone's muted. I appreciate that. Just meaning if anybody had anything to say, I didn't hear you. So before we jump into editing those 2 documents, are there any questions, any thoughts up to this point about my timeline? All right, no one seemed to be saying anything, which is fine.
No, just for clarity, right? These are all coming in as a referral or somebody you know. So these aren't necessarily an inquiry, say Zillow.
Let me answer that question correctly for me. Most of my book of business now, we learned early on that the online stuff or the Zillow and all that ended up not being our book of business, but we did pursue it. So I actually have a canned email that goes with these attachments to a buyer cold lead. And then I have a canned email for a referral lead. What's part of my canned email for the cold lead is actually a video. There's a link to a video saying, click here to get to know me better. And I basically, sitting on my front porch, did this like 3 years ago, and the video was saying, hey, we haven't met yet. I wanted to do a warm introduction. You'll find attached the blah, 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 but also there's a whole, team that brings us to the table. I'd like you to get to know me. And I spend about a minute on that video talking to them. So I have one for both. And then however they eventually get into me one-on-one, they go into the same system. But, a buyer lead, it might take you 3 weeks to get them on the phone. What I've learned is, internet lead, if I can get them those items of value and they send it back to me, it's crazy. They won't answer the phone. They may not get back to you, but they'll get back to you with that questionnaire answered. And then I can start building the relationship, even if they don't want to meet me yet. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And then,
So I've
and
learned to add that. I actually didn't have that at first, and then I added it because I was like, this is the greatest sense of value is I'm actually reaching out, sending them things without asking for anything in return, except a time to chat. And I've actually had more interaction with internet leads that way than before when I didn't have all this stuff that I emailed to them. And I will say, if they don't want to give their email, I say, I have about 5 to 6 items I want to email you. They're just about the area. They're resources all my buyers use. You don't have to share with me your email. I just want to send them to you. And some of them will and some of them won't. It doesn't bother me either way, but I have it ready to go. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Is it Alton or Alton? How do I pronounce
It's
your?
Elton. I'm sorry. I had to click my own mute.
Oh, that's okay. Elton?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, perfect. Welcome. I didn't have the screen up, so I think you joined me when I was going through the list. Did you get all those documents and have you printed them out?
I'm gonna go print them. I got them. I didn't print them out yet.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Take 2 seconds. I'm gonna go get my folder with all this stuff and we're gonna go through these documents. So however you have these Sandra, did you get them and are you able to edit them?
I got them, but I can't edit them at the moment.
All right, so here's the thing. We can just go to old-fashioned note-taking because it's not that hard to do it. And then anyone on this Zoom call, if y'all are like, hey, I'd like to spend some time with you just by yourself, y'all, I'm so available to do that. I've offered that from the very beginning. So if we go really fast or people have to hop off, I want you have my email because I sent it to the office. You have my phone number. I can schedule a Zoom with y'all anytime and we go over them one-on-one. But so everybody get those documents. I'm gonna run, go get my folder. Y'all hold tight. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take those 2 documents, the other one, the buyer guide and the needs analysis. And I'm gonna show you what mine is. We're gonna go through it and scratch out a lot of unnecessary information. We're gonna move some things around so that by the end of our Zoom, you have these 2 documents ready to go in your packet. And then you're going to send them to me for me to review because I am a spelling and grammar nut, as well as, what's the word? The formatting is pretty important because you don't want a buyer to get a 16-page document from you and it's overwhelming. And these 2 documents that are downloadable, they are editable. You see how big the font is and there's a lot of spacing. We're going to tweak that so that it's all compressed and your buyer questionnaire shouldn't be more than 2 to 3 to 4 pages. And your needs analysis shouldn't be more than like 7 or 8. I'm sorry, your buyer guide. So I'm gonna walk you through that. So hold tight and you'll get my folder.
hey, Patty, how's your listing on James Allen? The bigger square footage, maybe around 2,800, 0.4 acre, older home?
The Waits, it's like Waits Drive.
Yep.
Yeah, actually it's under contract.
Good for you. How many days was it? I had a friend of mine, he's not ready now. He's got to get their house to the market, but he had sent it my way. Was it less than a week?
I think so, maybe 7
Something right there.
days. Yeah. And actually they're doing a due diligence to the, I think the 17th. So they have the home inspector and contractors going out there on Thursday. And it was an all cash offer.
That's wild. Yeah, I was trying to look at it and trying to pull some, like you, I'm on James Allen too, and just trying to comp it out. It was interesting trying to find any resemblance or like or anything like for it. So kind of a unique property for James Allen.
Well, what happened was I gave her a guide range. Well, we can talk later.
Okay. Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody ready?
Ready.
All right, in front of you, I want you to separate. You have the buyer needs analysis. That's 10 pages. And then you have the guide to buying your home. Separate those 2. We're going to start with the buyer needs analysis. I'm going to instruct you what to do, and then some of you who might be taking notes, don't hesitate to interrupt me and say, hey, tell me again. I'm good with that. So first and foremost, the buyer needs analysis. This whole page, I did a watermark of my logo. I changed this to my brand. I don't think I put anything on this first bottom, but I think I did a footer on all the rest. And this becomes, for me, the Saltmarsh Properties buyer questionnaire. That's what mine says. Now, if you don't have a logo and all that, that's totally fine, y'all. I didn't either for the first couple of years. However, if you do, go ahead and use it. Go ahead and get it out there. Get your name out there. If you want to, put your picture. Because here's the deal. When you send this electronically and someone forwards it to a friend, let's say like, hey, you're looking for a house, this was useful. You don't know where it's going to get forwarded. So as much information as you can get on this. Next disclaimer. So as you see, I wrote your brand. So just make sure you put your info there. The next thing is I kept my questionnaire is editable. It is not a PDF. Everything else I send is a PDF. Now you can edit a PDF now. I told y'all I'm not technological. You saw how the beginning started. So you might want to make this a Google document. You might want to keep it a Word document, whatever you want to do.
I think she accidentally left again.
I think so too.
Bless her heart. I love it.
Hey, anyway, Kyle,
Mm-hmm.
I gave them a price range like from 430 to 450.
Yep.
And 450 is on the high end. So at the listing presentation, we settled for 445. They really wanted 450. Okay.
Yep.
Then a day or two later, I'm calling them. They say, oh, by the way, Patty, we hired an appraiser to go out and appraise the property. I'm like, great. I love a second opinion. I can't wait to get it back,
Yep.
Then they sent it to me and he appraised it at like 485. And I'm like, I'm trying to call him to justify, like, can you explain this a little bit to me? Because
Sure.
the house is a major fixer-upper, basically.
Sure. Yep.
Anyway, he wouldn't talk to me unless he had permission from his client, which is crazy for an appraiser, really. So anyway, I asked, I talked to the client and I said, do you understand this appraisal? And she says, no, I just saw what the figure is and I want to list it at 477.
Yep.
So I'm like, I gave them as much information as I could. And I said, if that's what you want to list it at, I'll be happy to list it at that for you. So I listed it at that. So no wonder you probably couldn't find comps.
Well, but like you, I was looking at the work value, that needs to go in it, everything else. On that side, there's that weird kind of dead spot on James Allen between 450, well, heck, even 425 and 500 for whatever reason. So, but it looks like a nice lot though. I think that was the big intrigue with my clients was that lot size.
Yeah, 0.42, and it's up on a little hill. They've never had any problems with flooding, nothing. With all those floods we had, the 1,000-year flood and all that, nothing. They only pay like $500 for flood insurance.
Yeah.
And the other
wonder.
It's really nice on James Island because you're not going too far down Folly Road. You just go down Harbor View and right over the bridge is the third right.
That's right.
So it's real close to downtown. I mean, it had some pluses, definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
But people have to be ready to put a lot of money in to fix it up. And apparently these people are.
Yep. Yeah, that due diligence. There she is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. My computer died. This is not my day. This has just not been the day I thought it was going to be. All right. So y'all feel free to review me. I would get like no stars. All right. So what I was saying is I keep it editable because what I learned is when I would send my buyer questionnaire as a PDF, I would get back an email with paragraphs. I wasn't getting all my answers. I wasn't getting the right answers. So then I switched it from a PDF back to an editable document. So however you choose to do that, you do it. But I think that's just my advice to you. If you want, to have your specific questionnaire ready to go to ask your 3 deep questions, if that makes sense. All right, so flip to page 2 of 10, to the first page, and I want y'all to make some notes on this document, on this page. The first one is you want to modify spacing and font size. We already talked about that. I'm making you make notes on this first page because when we hang up this Zoom, which may happen anytime, clearly, you want to be able to go and have these notes to then do what I told you to do. So if it's redundant, sorry, I just want to help you. So modify spacing and font size. So you want to shrink these down, all this down to as small or as short of a document as possible. You also want to look at your footers and logos, make sure that your name, all of your branding. And then you want to maybe categorize. So my questionnaire is broken into the who, what, when, where, and why. Some people might get really creative and say something poetic to describe the who, the what, all that, right? But you might so when I look at a document and have to fill it out, I like it when it's like in chunks. I like to have smaller, manageable chunks that the questions all are in that same theme. So I don't have a question about financing here, and then there's a follow-up question over on the second page, right? They're all together. So be thinking about that, how you can maybe categorize it so it's a little bit more visually manageable for a buyer. All right, get ready to write down 5 bullets. Here's the things I want you to add to this document, which is your questionnaire. I'm going to call it the questionnaire so I don't screw it up. That's just what I call it. You call it whatever. Here's what you want to add in this document somewhere. You want to add a link to your app. So that means you copy paste the link from maybe I think it's still the same because now we have Kelly and all that. Nonetheless, put something that's your technology in there. You want to give links to all school districts, and I'll talk about that, why that later. And there are 3 or 4. There's I think Dorchester 1 and 2 or something like that. But nonetheless, put links to the school districts. 3rd bullet, link to Chamber of Commerce info. That includes things like crime, things that people are going to ask you about that I don't answer anymore. I don't answer questions about school districts. So in order to not look like the person who is withholding information, I'm giving it to them right up front. So if they ask me questions, I can say, I haven't looked at it in a while, or that's not my area of expertise, is knowing that specific research, but I've given you what you need to do your research. So I'm overcoming that objection. Yeah, Kyle.
Hey, did you say I've always sent different links. Did you say the crime, you could find it in the Chamber of Commerce link?
Yeah, they have a page
Awesome.
that's just about crime and all that. They have things on socioeconomic and demographics and all that. It's really cool. So
Perfect.
you can decide what you want to link. On the Chamber of Commerce also, there are some interactive local maps. So I'll link that separately. So that's your 5th bullet. So the 5 bullets so far, 4th bullet, the 4th so far are link to your app, link to the school districts, link to the Chamber of Commerce info, link to local maps, which you can access at the Chamber of Commerce, and then a link to your testimonials. Click here, click here, click here for our testimonials. That's kind of how I have it. Where you put it in this document is not important. I'm just saying on this page, there was a lot of room to make notes. So I want it'd be smart to put all of that info into your questionnaire. All right, flip to page 3. You see that very first one, getting started. They took up half the page. Combine all of that into one. So basically, I think my question says, what are the name of your buyers and what is their preferred method of being contacted and what time of day? That's basically, so like this whole thing becomes one question with maybe one line with maybe 2 questions. Because what I've learned, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, what I've learned is you don't have to ask a buyer every single question. They're going to give you information you didn't ask for, but if you prompt them, they're going to give it. So I say, what are the name of your buyers? How do they like to be contacted? And when do they want to be contacted? Because if they're a nurse, let's say, they need to tell you, I'm going to be sleeping from, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. You need to know that at the outset. And they'll tell you that. Here's the other thing about why that's important is if I get back from them that they prefer texting, I don't text my buyers, not in the beginning, not for a while. So that gives me information to then pull from my skill set, my little toolkit. the script as to why I'm not going to respond and be a big texter with them and why that's valuable to them. So a big part of being a buyer's agent is controlling them and then letting them think it's for their value. So my script is, hey, I saw that you prefer texting. I want to go ahead and set some proper expectations there because I'm a buyer's agent, and y'all can say, because I work with a lot of buyers. Because I'm a buyer's agent, I'm in my car a lot. I need my GPS a lot. And I also don't text other people when I'm with my client. So there's a chance that if you text me, I'm going to dismiss it. And I don't mark it as read. I don't often have that time. I might lose it or forget about it. The greatest way to have a running to-do list with me is just to send it to me in an email. And that way, when I get back from my showings, I sit down and I don't delete an email until I've executed the request. So then they understand how I work. They are now realizing, oh yeah, she's probably in her car a lot. We're supposedly not supposed to be texting. So I've already told them, don't expect me to text you a lot. I also do the same thing with other agents. I don't text agents at all, except for like on my way or I'm almost here. That's when I say to my buyers, I'll share with you like, hey, I'm on my way kind of thing, but I will not text you anything real estate related, and I won't be able to respond to you very quickly. So again, this questionnaire is, if you get it, most of the time you're going to get it before you consult with them. It gives you time to be like, okay, who am I working with and how do I manage their expectations and keep this a good working relationship? So if you have a complete texter, you now can control how that works. All right, go to the next bullet. Who is the primary contact? X that. We just handled it. So delete that bullet. Keep the what is prompting your move. I say what's bringing you to the Charleston area. The next bullet is you need to change that from when do you need to be in your new home. I say when do you want to be moving into your new home. That's a very purposeful sentence structure, because spring of 2021 is different than May 31st of 2021. Because then I can start to educate them. All right, so since you're getting a loan, if you want to be moving into your property May 31st, then we need to be under contract by April 15th. So I found that when they said spring, it left me trying to read their minds. When I changed the sentence, I then was able to set my calendar accordingly, which is, if you are May 31st of 2021, that means we need to start looking sometime in December, because the inventory is lower. It might take you a little bit longer. So what does that mean for me? That right now as a July agent, they're not a top buyer until December. So I've got to figure out how to build rapport, cultivate the relationship, but also not waste time if I've got bigger priorities of schedules of my buyers. Does that make sense? Next bullet. I had some additions to this question. So it's all on one line, but it's got a couple question marks. And that one is, are you pre-approved for a mortgage? That's the first one. The second one is, my second question is, do you understand closing cost versus down payment? And then the third part is, I have just a statement, which is be prepared to choose a low mortgage versus closing cost assistance. So I asked them if they are familiar with it. And then when I read it, they're not. I then explain to them how that works. And that's a level of education. That's part of my consultation now. All right, what is your price range? The addition to that, I'm on the last bullet on this page. I asked them what their source is. Like, what is your price range? Who have you been in dialogue with? And do you know what the monthly breakdown is of that? The reason I say stuff like, the reason I have that in there is because, as we all know, or some of you who don't know, if you're pre-approved for $700,000, but you have very lofty retirement goals and don't want to spend more than $3,000 or let's say $2,500 a month, then you're not going to buy a $700,000 house. And sometimes they don't always know to ask for their monthly breakdown. More importantly, let's say they have a monthly breakdown, but they haven't factored in HOAs. All of that just needs to be a conversation, because keep in mind, if you're new to this, if you're new in the business, this guide is also your way of staying on track in your consultation, so that you don't forget details and there won't be any bait and switch at the end of it. I think I put a star in there with that same one saying, don't alter your credit in any way. We'll talk about this. And again, during the consultation is when I say, don't change your job. Don't go buy furniture. Don't buy a car, that kind of thing. All right, we're going to the next page if there are no questions. All right, page 4. I strike, that's not in mine. If we found a home that meets, I strike that. I don't even say that because most of the time I'm not consulting in the office before I walk out to go show property. So that's not even important. Here are the new 4 questions, the new 4 bullets I do have. So be prepared to add these. The first one is, if you've been searching online, what addresses have you saved? Please send those to me. I had to add that recently, obviously, because a lot of people come to the table now with their own list of addresses. So I now have said, send those to me. The next one is, do you have a current home to sell? Is it on the market yet? If they're local and maybe don't know that maybe they haven't done any research, that could potentially be double transactions. Also, if they're from another area, you can also say, hey, I have a great Keller Williams agent in that area. So you might be able to get a referral fee. So it's important to ask those questions and then see, where you can help them achieve their goals. It's not all about you, but it doesn't hurt to have a second transaction. Any other contingencies we need to discuss? And if you're renting, when is your lease up? Because again, if let's say they want to buy, let's say they're like, we want to buy by August 1, but they have a lease until December 1. It's like, okay, so we need to talk through that. So you need to this questionnaire allows you to know a lot more before you even get on the phone with them, and you can be kind of, controlled and organized and confident with how the process is going to work. All right, page 5 of 10. I just want you to star and make a note of the spacing and the size of the font. This is where all this stuff is taking up a lot of space and you don't need to. All right, we're about to strike a ton of questions, so bear with me. I'm going to go quick. First bullet, I strike. Third, fourth, and fifth bullet, I strike. 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yep.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I had to go help my daughter with something. When you're talking about page 5 of 8, are you talking about your needs and lifestyle at this point?
Good question. Let's go through. I'm going to have you edit that page first, and then we're going to go over and I'm going to tell you why I keep what I keep, and then I'll answer that question.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
I just didn't know if I missed something big.
Oh, no. No, I didn't go over any of the heading. I said, notice the font and the spacing. Make sure you're managing that. So, all right, starting back over. Strike 1, strike bullets 3, 4, 5, strike bullets 7, 8, 9, which is under the heading lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Next heading is location.
3,
You want me to wait?
5.
Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm gonna wait on location. Let's go back up to lifestyle. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about why I strike it. Okay. I kept bullet 2. However, that changed from its current wording to, do you have any overnight guests or visitors to consider? A lot of people don't realize, and I help them think about that. They're moving to the beach, and if they aren't from this area and they only need 2 bedrooms for their kids, and they have to think through, maybe I need to add a 3rd one or some kind of extra room because I forgot people will want to come visit more often. It's random, but I swear that conversation came up a lot in the beginning with people moving here. So I just now have kept this question. It doesn't hurt. Do you have any overnight guests or visitors to think about? Skipping down to the other one that I kept, it says, do you have any pets? That modified for me to, do you need a fence or can it be put in post-closing? When I used to send out just, do you have any pets? I would just get answers about their names. And I realized that doesn't help me in any way. So I need to make that sentence more about what about the house is important to you with your pets. And also I think it was a trial and error. I also had at one point, do you need a fence? And the answer was always yes. So then I realized I needed to tell them or find out, can we put it in after closing? That changed my whole search. I didn't have to search for just fences, right? All right, back to your question, Wendy. I don't have a heading called lifestyle. I have the who, what, when, where, and how. So you can do whatever you want. If you want to keep the word lifestyle, you can. If you want to keep your needs, you can. I scaled it back to where there's just one phrase, the who, the what, and then underneath it are just bullets of questions. So anybody can do whatever you want. I'm pretty clean and simple. Some people might want to make it a little bit more fun. All of this is your personal touch. That's just to answer your question. I don't necessarily have your needs or lifestyle in there anymore. All right. And also, if I were working with these headings, my lifestyle now only has 2 questions. So I realized I don't need all those headings. I can just have the questions, and then I took what was about the lifestyle and put it under the what, I think, or something, you know. All right, let's go down underneath the heading location. That first one changed from the ideal location. It changed to, are you familiar with Charleston and do you have a preferred area? I needed to find out, there are a couple of things I weed out with that. If they want to come to Charleston, but they're not familiar with Charleston, they don't have a preferred area, and they're coming for vacation in 3 weeks, I'm already busy 5 out of those 6 days. Because if they're not familiar with the area and they don't know, then I've got to learn. I learned I will not offer, even though I'm available and I'm new and I'm hungry and I want money, I'm not going to offer myself to drive them around for 5 days. So I'm finding out from the get-go if they're going to want me to be a part of the transaction, be a part of the tour guide. And then I have to kind of step back and punt and only offer them a couple of hours, if that makes sense. Second bullet, what's your maximum commute time? I say from work or beach, airport, etc. Some people are going to come here and are going to be retired. Some people are not going to be retired. So you need to unpack that question a little bit. Is commute time from where? So I added the where, so they could be thinking, oh yeah, I might want to be closer to the airport or whatever. I struck bullet 3. You don't need to know their work address. Bullet number 4, that turned in from a question to, if schools are important, here are the links to the districts. That's where I put my school links. I already told you in the beginning, put them somewhere. This is where I put them. And then I struck the last 2 bullets about the particular view and what else is important. They're going to tell you that. I don't know that I've said it, but this questionnaire is not supposed to be so long that every little detail is covered. A buyer is going to answer you, we only want to be near the water, because that's important to them. You don't need to ask them that. So there's some questions on this questionnaire that KW provided that are not needed and save space when you remove it, because you're going to get the information. And I obviously am teaching this because I've learned over 12 years what will come up even without asking. So I feel safe telling you, you can strike this question, they're going to tell you. All right, page 6. Also keep noting how they have their font and their spacing. You're going to want to work on that. Again, back to the headings. You can decide what to do with those headings, keep them or not. I don't have any of them. But directly under the general, both of those bullets are struck for me. And now what my question is this going to be a primary or secondary home? Do you prefer new construction or resale? And do you want single family or an attached property? Both bullets under structure exterior get struck. The next bullet, which says approximately what size house, that question for me turned into, what is your minimum and maximum square footage? Or what are your minimum maximum square footage requirements? I learned that if I didn't make them think about where they currently were living, they kind of didn't pick houses that made sense. And then when we walked through them, they'd be like, oh no, this is way too small. And so I learned, well, Lynn, ask another question. Ask a better question. It's up to me to do my job. So now that question has me say to them, where are you currently living? And and they say it's 1,500 and it's really tight, then I'm like, then let's start at 1,700. We now have a minimum square footage. If they are currently in a 3,500 square foot house and they're like, we want to downsize, and I say, let's go down to 3,000. So now I have a max. So there's a different conversation that needs to be had, because people do better about applying their needs when they start picturing where they are than just, let's talk about your dream home. I think that's such a lofty statement, and it doesn't get the job done as far as I'm concerned. So that's why a lot of these questions are a little bit more critical. All right, next 3 bullets are struck. The ones that ask about the stories, the size lot, and type of exterior, all those are struck. I kept do you want a porch or deck or screen porch? That's important, because you also want to make sure you have someone coming from the New England area. They don't realize that our state bird is a mosquito. So I will say to them, we probably want to get you a screen porch, and those are pretty easy to find. So if your budget is this, we're probably gonna be able to get you a house with a screen porch. Is that good? So it's my goal to get as much bang for their buck, but nonetheless, the screen porches and decks are really prevalent with structures in this area. They're not everywhere in the country. So I just want to make them think about that so they can say, yeah, that'd be great. My next one about the garage, all my question says is, do you want an attached or detached garage? And is there a minimum number of bays? Again, I drill down really deep from the beginning because I'm a critical thinker. I need more detail. So what are you looking for in terms of a garage? That's just too broad for me. I ask more specific questions. And if I still haven't asked the right question, they're going to tell me, because I've made them now think about the garage. I struck the next 2 bullets about the swimming pool or hot tub or the greenhouse or shed. They'll tell you, do not give me a pool, or I have to have a pool. They'll tell you that. You don't have to have a question in there. And then the next thing about what other exterior features, that turned into what are amenities important to you, because then that gives me an opportunity to educate them that now there are a lot of neighborhoods in Charleston that do not have amenities, and they're not coming. So if that's a deal breaker for you, that weeds out like 30 houses that might be in their search category, right? So that became a new question for me when everything started building again. All right, we're going to go to the next page if there are no questions. All right, your dream home is what it's under. I'll keep it simple. The only 2 things that I kept on this page is the 4th bullet down, how many bedrooms? And then the 7th bullet down, how many bathrooms? Everything else is too much. Yes, ma'am.
Like when you're asking these questions, wouldn't you tie those questions into the square footage? Because a lot of people will tell you the square footage, well, or I want 3 2-bedrooms or 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. No?
Yeah, so when we get to the next page towards the end, you'll see where it's all brought back together. But yes, my separate categories, all house questions are under the what?
Okay.
The why. The why is what's the lifestyle stuff. I had to think through that. The what is the house, and the why is why you come to Charleston. What do you want to do when you're not working? That kind of thing. And then there's one more question for this one that I have learned I found was helpful. What do you want to duplicate in your current home, or what do you not want to repeat? So again, I love the whole what's your dream house, and when we watch videos on it, I keep my mouth shut about it. But when I do my consultation, it's not about a dream home. It's about actually a realistic blueprint for what it is they want. So I've geared everything to circle around that premise for me. So back to the what do you love in your current home versus what kind of kitchen do you love? That may not be realistic with their budget. So what do they have now that they hate or love, and what do we keep or get rid of? That to me is a much more functional question. If there are no more questions, we'll go to page 8. All of it under living room, dining room, or family room gets struck. All that's gone. And back to your question about how does it all come together? The summary, that word for me becomes that heading is 5 must-haves. And I give a quick little like blurb where I say, now that we've gone over, a lot of what you love, want, don't want, what a typical house boils down to are deal breakers. And I need to know what your 5 top deal breakers are, or 5 must-haves, however you want to label it. And then I say, what are your family's 5 top things? And then I supply them a little list of words. So I'll say, for example, and I'll have some things I didn't even go over in this, but I want them to be thinking. I say, fireplace, swimming pool, whatever. I list like 10 words for them to say. I say, this is an idea of what I'm trying to get from you. What I typically see, the answer of that is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2,200 square feet. Because I made them think about it in the beginning, they are now already prepared to give me those answers again succinctly. This allows me too to go back and compare 5 must-haves with what they may have written the couple questions prior. And again, that gives me my drill 3 deep with those things. Because if they're not identical, then I just need to have a conversation with them and say, over here, you said that a garage was not a deal breaker, but then you said you want an attached garage. Let's talk about that again. So it's basically just kind of like, I'm their stenographer, and they're just supposed to tell me what they want. And if I see anything not aligned, that's just where we keep having a conversation. Another thing is kind of like some people will say a large yard. If that's something they write, I'll make them answer me like, what is a large yard to you? Because if they're from Ohio, they're thinking a large yard is 3 acres, right? And then if they're coming from downtown New York, they think our 1/4 of an acre is a farm. So you have to use common sense with some of this also and say, tell me what large yard means to you, that kind of thing. All right, go to page 9. Everything about your dream neighborhood gets struck because we've already covered that. We've covered everything about the amenities and where do you want to be. And so sometimes they'll add stuff like we really want walking trails. They'll expand where they want to expound, and then they won't in others. And every buyer is very different, but at least you've got the most important bullets so that you can continue the dialogue in the actual consultation. All right. And then the last section for me is my very last page has as the heading, our relationship. And I have 6 bullets, 6 questions. Those are, have you worked with an agent before? Have you bought in South Carolina before? What did you like or not like about that agent? What is the most important thing about our relationship I need to know? And then the last question is, what have I not asked that I should have? They'll answer this. They will answer this very well. And that's where you get to take off your nitty-gritty bullet and kind of say, okay, I read here that you kind of had a bad experience, or you had an amazing experience. I have big shoes to fill. That's where you can kind of let your personality, you can go less businesslike, and have a little bit more of an emotional conversation. But like I said, I just put it towards the end, for whatever reason. You can put it wherever you want. I think it's important for you to have that there so that you can get an idea of what baggage this person's bringing into the environment, because they will have baggage. Okay, so the last page, 10 of 10. It's kind of confusing, but my words is basically all of this. I liked this verbiage. I didn't think it needed to be in the questionnaire, so I actually took it and put it in the post-consult email. So what I want you to do on this questionnaire is I want you to take this page, either save it somewhere else because it's good information, or delete it completely, because when I get your questionnaire from you and I approve it, you're going to get my post-consult emails and everything, which incorporated this. I liked what it had to say. I just didn't want to waste a page of my questionnaire on it. I want to use it for an email, if that makes sense. So
okay,
that's
talking about page 10.
Yes, ma'am. That was page 10. Hold on.
That last page, what's ahead?
Yes, that basically went away. My buyer questionnaire now ends on our relationship.
Okay.
I don't have anything about what's ahead, but that what's ahead verbiage comes in my post-consult email of here's what you're going to get from me, here's what I'm going to do for you, that kind of thing. But that's also where I add the here's your homework, here's my homework. Okay, so that is the questionnaire. Your homework is to send that to me. Now we have one more thing to do, but the buyer's guide is a lot faster than this was. So we're going to whip through the buyer's guide. There are only a few edits, but I want you to understand the homework. The homework is, it's only homework if you want my canned emails in my system. Let me be very clear. You don't have to do this, but if you want my system, because my system references the questionnaire and it references the guide and my vendor list and all of that, I don't want you to have it until I know that you have the proper tools to kick off right with your buyer, or else I'm giving you the back half of the deal without the important ground laying tools. All right, so you'll send me your questionnaire on your schedule, and then I will, once I've approved it and I think it looks good, it's not too overwhelming. I've sent it back to a few agents because they just kept the font the same and it was like an 8-page document. And I thought, nope, you can do better than that. Let's make it smaller. Let's make the buyer a little bit less overwhelmed and not have, you know, a heading that starts and then all the questions are on the next page. I'm kind of a stick organization. Because I think it just makes you look better. Don't send them some kind of like weird 12-page dangling participle kind of document. So that, I just want to tell you that. So if I seem really critical or whatever, I don't want to be that way. I'm just trying to make it the best for you. All right, pull up the next document, the guide.
Okay, before we go to the guide,
Sure.
so this is a 10-page document. So what do you think? Is 5 pages good?
Mine is now 4.
4, okay.
And ironically, 2 of those pages are pages that come out of the guide, which I'm going to show you. My questions are only on 2 pages.
Oh,
The
okay.
first 2 pages of my questionnaire are a little bit more about here's what Saltmarsh is about. Here's how I operate. Here's what you need to know about Joseph and Lynn. Here's what I do as a buyer's agent for you. I shrank it down so that the actual questions are the last 2 pages. The first 2 are about, you know, what my item of what my value is to them.
Okay.
And I you know, I increased margins. I only do like a 11, 12 point font. I don't go really dramatic with headings because I wanted a really short document.
But this is an edible document.
Correct. So when you get it back from them, it can be extended because they might have typed in it and it moved it down.
Right.
But when they get it from me, it's only 4 pages and everything is very organized.
Got it.
All right. Any other questions before we jump into the guide? Okay. Same thing where you see KW, put your brand there, make this guide with your information because same rule applies. If it gets forwarded to people, get your name out there. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was muted, so I didn't get to yell out.
Oh.
Back where it says, are you pre-approved for a mortgage? Do you understand closing costs versus down payment? I wrote, be prepared to choose a low mortgage versus closing cost assistant. Can you explain?
Let me get there.
Just that last sentence, and I could have written it down wrong.
No, you wrote it down correctly. So probably in mine, I probably have, we'll talk more about this after I write that statement. But what it boils down to is I want to know if they're familiar with closing costs and with their down payment. And then when in my consultation, I say, okay, my job and my greatest goal is to get you a low asking price or low sales price and also have all of your closing costs covered. That's not totally a win-win for the seller. This is me talking to the buyer. You're my buyer. That's not always a win-win for the seller. So we have to go ahead and start thinking about what that would be a happy compromise for you. Because my goal is to get you what your ideal situation is. So I'll explain to them, we submit an offer with all of our ideal terms and it's up to them to push back on our terms. So if you want a low sales price and you want closing cost assistance, I'm going to try to get that for you. But as you can agree, it will not be a win-win for the seller. So you need to figure out with your buying partner, if they have one, what's more important to you. And then I'll say, is there anything about that that's confusing? And they may say, yeah, kind of. And then I just go into, you have a down payment, you have a closing cost. And then if you if you have to go low on the mortgage, if you have to offer more than you wanted to, then we can actually push up our closing cost. Or if you're cash heavy, you might say, I want a really low mortgage and I'm good with paying 5,000 of mine or 10,000 of mine. So my consultation is me kind of talking on the cuff about what these questions bring up. So if I were you, I would say I would have that sentence, because your whole job as a buyer's agent from the very beginning is to carefully and kindly set proper expectations. So I would say, we can talk more about this in our consultation. If you don't like the sentence, you don't have to have it. You might also just say, what's more important to you, low mortgage or closing cost, versus telling them to be prepared. You know, however you want to word it, but I think it's the thing is you want to get to the bottom of where they truly understand it or not.
Got it.
All right. Anything else before we go to page 2 of the guide? Okay. Big deal here. This document needs a ton of editing when it comes to spacing and font, but most everything else I've kept. So this document that's now 15 pages, as you can see, I think mine might be 10. Like I really shrank it down.
Hey, this is 18 pages.
Well, it says at the bottom 2 of 18.
Yeah, that's what mine says.
Oh,
What's the rest of y'all say?
let me go to it and pull it up. See what I sent y'all.
The buyer's guide?
I
Mine's
have
24 pages.
How many?
Mine is 24 on the guide to buying. I could be in the
Mine's
wrong spot
18.
though.
Mine's 18.
Oh, you know what? It has an auto complete. Okay. I just looked at the document. The document itself, ironically, doesn't have anything. I think when you print it, it fills it. So I've had one forever that I just have been using for this class. So what we'll do then, in order to make sure that we don't, I know that what I've sent you is what you're supposed to be using. So let's just start back. So on the second page is at the very top, it has it's all about you, and at the very bottom it still says it's all about you.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, make a little note and say move this page to buyer questionnaire. So all of that information comes out of the guide, goes into your questionnaire. This is one out of the 4 that's not a question page, if that makes sense. But I totally shrank down so that this whole page probably only takes up a quarter of a page in my questionnaire. Okay.
Right, and there's nothing you would edit on, or they wouldn't change this at all. This is
Correct.
okay.
I liked everything it had to say, and so I kept it. I just moved it. So the way I decided to create these 2 tools is, for me, the buyer questionnaire, I wanted it to be about me, kind of selling myself, a little brand heavy. And then I wanted the buyer guide to be only about what to expect while buying a house versus all the conversation about what I'm gonna do for you, blah, blah, blah. I wanted that buyer guide to be universal, where I could send it to anyone, even if I knew they weren't using me or weren't buying for a while, whatever. I could just send them that guide, and it tells them what happens in South Carolina, if that makes sense. All right, the next page of this guide should be page 3. It starts from you get from me, and at the very end is the last bullet, working with you until you find the home of your dreams. This is also moved to my questionnaire. So you can make a note, this goes to the questionnaire. Again, this is more selling what my value is, which is what I identified my questionnaire to be. And like, for instance, on my questionnaire, I think what I have is, there's a heading that says, what does it cost me to hire a buyer's agent? $0 is what my heading says. And then all of this comes underneath it. For $0, this is what I do for you. So again, I'm turning my questionnaire into kind of my selling point. So now technically, going to the next page, your home guide, this is where it begins. This is your actual first page that starts with 6 steps to home buying. Do you see that? And then the very last one, the very last bullet is new home developments. All right, I didn't strike any of that. I liked it all. I thought it was a really clear explanation. I did edit the font and the spacing. Go to the next page where it says continued. I don't like continuing anything, so I kept all of that on the same page, but this is all kept. I didn't strike any of this. Next page, there's some edits on the next page, which starts with funding your home purchase. If you jump down to the numeral 1, qualification for the mortgage, there's a paragraph. See the paragraph? Lenders may require that your monthly payments, blah, blah, blah. Everybody see that? Okay. I struck that. I don't like that paragraph. All I wrote was lenders will ask about income, taxes, debts, and assets. I put it off on the lender. This is going to be your lender's job, not mine. So I took that out of telling them anything and being responsible of what's going to happen, if that makes sense. Everything else on this page I kept. Skip to the next one, where the top of the page is process of funding. The only edit here is jump down to number 4, where it says title company. That says attorney. And I put parentheses, South Carolina is an attorney state. For a period of time, we were working with a North Carolina company, a North Carolina team, the Temple team. So I had this both because North Carolina is not an attorney state. But if you're just a South Carolina agent, for the purpose of your guide that you're sending to a South Carolina buyer, it's an attorney state. You don't need to keep title company. But I kept those bullets because the attorney does do that stuff. It's just an attorney, not a title company. You hire an attorney, you don't hire a title company.
So that heading is just attorney?
I have the word attorney. Mm-hmm.
That's it, okay.
And I put parentheses, South Carolina is an attorney state. Like that's basically what I have.
Okay.
Okay, next page. Only one edit. All the way at the bottom, you see title company again in the last paragraph. That word, that just becomes attorney.
Where are we now? Where did you say?
The next page under the heading making an offer.
Okay.
All the way down to the bottom.
Yes.
Under note colon, there's a word title company. That becomes attorney.
Okay.
Everything else I kept. Like I said, I liked this guide. I think it was really simple, clear, not overwhelming, and so I like it. Go to the next page, which the heading is Closing 101. That first bullet, I now have a slash I added. So it says a certified check for closing cost, right? I now have a certified check / wiring. And then I strike that second sentence, make the check payable. That isn't even relevant anymore, so just delete that sentence. And then I strike bullet 2 and bullet 4 and 5. Because what I know for sure is they're definitely going to have to get money to the attorney. And I know for sure they're going to have their photo ID, but all this other stuff is not always a given. So I just took it off because that's not my job. The attorney is going to tell them what they need. So I just took it out so that it just shortened the document. Go to the very last sentence on that page. The sentence reads, at the end of closing, the deed will be taken, blah, blah, blah. It will be sent to you after processing. It's funny how differently they do it in North Carolina. I learned this, but in South Carolina, all I have now is the deed and the recording is part of the attorney's job. They will advise you. So I basically just said, all right, so while y'all are making those edits, part of my consultation is saying to them, there are a lot of really great little things that I've learned over the years that are just now part of what I say. And one of them is there's a team of us who are going to get you to the closing table. That team consists of me, the attorney, the lender, the inspector. I list out those people, right? And I say, My job is to create the contract terms and to execute the contract terms inside the time frame that are on that's on the contract. Once I've done all that, and I explained to them, that includes inspectors, whatever. Once I have done all of that, there will be other people who now step in and take this transaction and work on it more heavily than I'm going to. I'm involved from the very beginning, and I stay on everyone every day. I talk to everyone every day. However, you have certain people with certain wheelhouses, and mine is the contract. The attorneys are all the legal parts, getting it recorded, blah, blah, blah. The inspector is helping you understand what the home that you're buying and advising you and me on what we're supposed to ask the seller that's going to make you most comfortable. So I've created this whole, I have a script that's now the team is what gets you there. So that's why I'm super comfortable putting a lot of this stuff off on, this is the attorney's job. They're going to advise you. What's another really good thing I say? This is important. Back to the whole closing cost and down payment. I say our only job right now is to find the right fit between you and the seller. And if there's someone who wants to come behind you or is looking at the house at the same time as you, and they want to spend $5,000 more than you're willing to, I never say than you can or can afford or can't. I never put it in terms of you are limited. I say your budget is what we're going to stick to. And if there's someone who wants to spend more money than you're willing to on a house that might be a little overpriced, then that's a better fit for the seller. Honestly, we can agree that buyer is going to probably go through that transaction and complete it with a little bit less stress than you will. So our goal as a team, you, the buyer, and me, the seller, me, the agent, we're trying to find the right fit here. So there may come a time in this whole negotiating process where we've uncovered we're not the right fit. So we're going to make sure that if and when that happens, we can walk away comfortably. And we know that we're just going to find something else. And I set that up as well when I am showing houses. I make them rate their houses. And I say, and that's also a Keller Williams thing they taught me. And I said, my goal is to have you one or at least two houses that you like a lot. We want a plan A. And then if we find out that that house is not going to be the right fit for you based on all the other circumstances, we want a plan B that we can say emotions are not going to attach us to plan A. And then we forget our business plan of keeping you in budget. So all that kind of stuff has come from finding out what their actual business goals are, which is what the questionnaire does, and then promising them I'm going to keep them there. So that's why some of this, there's method to my madness of why I've taken out some things and added some things, because I've learned how to hone that consultation and be very comfortable with not giving them the moon, but giving them a realistic and peaceful and exceptional experience. That was just a little bit of sidebar. Okay. Frequently asked questions is the next page. I liked all these. You can keep them all. You don't have to strike any of them. I'll tell you what I've added. I added my own over the years. I added a quick little blurb about earnest money so that it's in writing a little bit about what they can expect with the earnest money. I've also given them a little bit of a blurb on repair procedure versus due diligence. I go over that with them in person as well. But if you're a new agent or using a questionnaire and a guide for the first time, you also can put things in here that will remind you to talk about it. So if you don't trust your memory to remember everything, then you have a guide where you need to say, here's also a reminder for me to mention earnest money or, repair procedure versus due diligence, if that makes sense.
And then with the earnest money, do you try to do 1% of the purchase price?
No.
What is your advice on earnest money for the buyer?
I was looking for that, but I realized you were just asking me that. I very rarely go over $1,000, even if it's a $500,000 house, until the seller pushes back. And if it's less than 200, I sometimes say, if y'all are comfortable with 1,000, great, but we can start at 500. Then if the seller pushes back, we have that dialogue and I explain to them, this really isn't that risky. But nonetheless, as a buyer's agent, I want the least amount of money on the table. And if the seller doesn't push back, great. If the seller does, then I have that conversation. But I'm telling you, I write probably 30 contracts a year, let's say, and three sellers make me change my earnest money. They never do.
Okay.
I appreciate when people do more. I appreciate that. I don't think that's a bad idea. But if a seller doesn't have a good agent and they want to secure a $500,000 house for only $1,000 earnest money, that's a win-win for me, because if they do repair procedure and not due diligence, they might be like, we don't care about the $1,000. We want out. We now don't have the stress of that's $10,000 the seller didn't even ask for. So that's kind of my thought process.
Hey, I like it.
Okay, the next page, about me, that is moved to the buyer questionnaire. Again, everything about the guide is general, and anything that's about me, I've moved to the questionnaire. You can decide. So a lot of these bullets you might not have the ability to answer any of these. And if you don't worry about that. Your goal is, though, to create some type of getting to know me part of your questionnaire. I think you need to take it out of the guide. I think the guide is good, is just kind of like, this is what you're going to do from start to finish, and not water it down with agent discussion, if that makes sense. Next page is above and beyond. That is optional. I wrote the word optional. I don't think I have that in mind. But if you're a new agent and need to beef it up as much as possible, keep it. I guess what I'm saying is there's certain things of this guide that I think are crucial, and some I think are optional, so it's up to you. I've already gone over what I think is crucial. Now I'm going over what I think is optional. The next page, Keller Williams Realty. Again, that's good information. If you don't have your own stats or you don't know what to do, you can get your office stats. That's kind of a good spot to put, here's what we do internationally and here's what we do locally. You could decide. No one ever even remembers who I work for, and they don't ever ask me how many I've sold or what my office is doing. But because Keller Williams has it in their guide, I'm not going to poo-poo it. I'm just saying it could be optional. All right, the what's ahead page, which is next. That one for me goes to that whole bit of information has been moved to my post-consultation email. So my post-consultation email is full of information KW gave me. It's just not in my documents that I attached to the buyer. And then for me, I'm on my last page, which is notes. I don't know if y'all have more, but I delete notes. Like, I don't need notes because I'm taking notes somewhere else. So I delete that page. Again, in the vein of shortening the whole document. All right, so that's the guide. So your homework is you're going to edit these two documents. The guide is going to take very little time. What I want to see is your brand. I want to see it shorter. And I do want to see that you've removed title company and all that. Your questionnaire is what I'm going to be pretty critical on, just because same rule applies. I want it to be shorter. I want you to take some of that good verbiage from the guide to make your questionnaire really selling you. And then I want your brand in there, and I want it to be powerful and short versus lengthy and superfluous. Okay. We are done with my, what's it called? Presentation. So at this time, do you have any other questions or thoughts before I let y'all go do something a lot more fun?
I have a question. So you're sending all this information on that first email you mentioned?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're sending it to them, and then what happens how long does it take for them to respond and also fill out that initial thing, the questionnaire?
It ranges completely. So I will send them, what I'll do is I'll send the email, and then about an hour after I send it, I call them. Sometimes I'm hammering out that consultation either right there or 2 hours later, and they don't fill it in and give it back to me because they don't want to, but so we go through it together. I go through all those questions and I have them follow along with me.
Okay, on the phone.
What?
You do it on the phone, correct?
I do this on the phone. I do more on the phone than I do in person now, because most people, because I trust these documents so well now that being in person isn't key to building the relationship. But if you can meet them in person, obviously we have a very different life right now. Back before all this happened though, I would drive to North Charleston, let's say, meet them at Starbucks, and I would actually, all right, so back to your original question. It can take them, sometimes they don't send it back. but they say I can talk tomorrow, and then I have it printed out ready to go, and I'm answering the questions for them on their own. Because I will often print out this questionnaire and it goes with me to the first showings, because if anything comes back during those showings, they're like, I really don't like this kitchen because it's blah, blah, blah. I'll say, well, here on your questionnaire, you said blah, blah was okay. Do we need to edit the questionnaire? My goal is always telling them, you're my boss, but this is our Bible. So whatever you say in here, I don't change until you tell me to. And the other thing is that happens with price as well. So I have this questionnaire that I save. And if I start getting a list of addresses from them, and I've had this happen, and they say, I didn't get this from you. You didn't send this to me. And I say, well, let me go look. And then I'll say, well, part of our consultation was that you were not going to go under 1,700. You sent me 2 properties that are 1,560. So now is the question, do you want to bump our search down to 1,500, or do these 3 now get removed? And they're like, oh yeah, I missed that. So this questionnaire is so important. But back to your thing, sometimes I don't even get it back. Other times I get it back within 24 hours and they tell me when they want to talk. Sometimes I don't hear from them for a week. And then I'll follow up and I'll follow up and I'll follow up until I hear from them. And if I don't hear from them, then eventually I'll remove them completely. And I stop following up. So you're going to get some people who don't want to respond and are not going to. And then you're going to get others who are like, I'm ready to go. It also helps. Here's another thing. This also really helps if you get referrals, when you get into a referral time of your life. Joseph and I get a ton of referrals from other agents. Is that now I get to say to them, I sent them an email with 12 attachments. I followed up with a phone call. I followed up every week. I haven't heard back from them. It makes me look a little bit less like I didn't do my job following up. If I can track, I can see where I emailed them. I can see where I called them. I can see where I emailed them again. So the questionnaire, back to the original question, it's going to be what you really rely on. But if you don't hear back, you just follow up with them probably once a week. I do like a once a week till I hear back.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? All right. So basically your job only now is to work on these 2 things, email them to me, and then I will, once I feel good about what you have, your toolkit ready to go, I'm going to send you those canned emails and then you have that list of steps. So you already have that part of it. And my canned emails, you're going to have to just, when you get them, just understand that they were written for an operations manual. So there will be things in there that you need to delete, such as, hi, I'm a transaction coordinator, because I had a set of emails that the transaction coordinator would send. But the majority of my business, my whole 12 years, I've done all of this by myself, which is why I had to create this system, because I would have 5 and 6 buyers at a time, which was a good thing. But if I had to sit there and think up where I was with everyone, I would have gotten out of the business probably. So being able to just go copy paste something and edit it quickly versus rewriting it every time, that drastically changed my stress level when I had to, my schedule was really stretched.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. So again, I'm available. So let's say you start working on this and you're like, hey, I have some more questions. Y'all have my phone number. You have my email. Ask me anything. And then if you want to set up another time with me one-on-one, I'm always available to do that. And we can keep chatting if you need some tweaks to your consultation. Because I go back, my rule of thumb always is I hate buyers or liars. I hate all those statements that put buyers in a bad vein. I have a tendency to go back. I want to go look at your consultation and see what you did. I think the problem starts with the agent. Because they don't set the proper tone and the proper expectations. So as you continue to do this, if you start seeing a lot of stress and issue with your buyers, we might need to go back to the drawing board and figure out maybe where you're not mastering a certain talent as a buyer's agent versus the buyers are all difficult. And that's what I did. Half of what all these questions you've seen are because I royally screwed up or wasted a lot of time and didn't get paid. And so I learned to be a little bit more savvy about my 3rd year. I got savvy about what my system was going to look like.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of mistakes to help you avoid. All right, guys. Sorry about all that confusion in the beginning. Hopefully this was still valuable to you guys and it was helpful.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Lynn, so much.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Lynn.
You. Bye.